What you see is a projection of your own consciousness. I'm going to read a little bit from David R. Hawkins' book. Well, it's a book about him, The Wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins. He was a prolific writer, and towards the end of his life, he wrote a lot on spirituality, and this is the book that I'll be reading from. The Wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins, Classic Teachings on Spiritual Truth and Enlightenment. One thing from the introduction that really stood out to me, I knew Dr. Wayne Dyer was a big fan of the book Power versus Force. If you have not read the book Power versus Force, it's by Dr. David R. Hawkins. It's a game changer. A transformative effect occurs all throughout his writing. This is what the introduction says. The late spiritual and self-help author Wayne Dyer called Dr. Hawkins' book Power versus Force perhaps the most important and significant book I've read in the past 10 years. Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta wrote this to him after reading his manuscript for Power versus Force. Continue to use your beautiful gift of writing to the full. Legendary musician Nipsey Hussle, shortly before his untimely death, said to an interviewer, "The most powerful book I've read in the last 10 years is called Power versus Force." A very diverse review of people there. Saint Teresa, Mother Teresa, Wayne Dyer, and Nipsey Hussle. All right, I'm going to just read a little bit of chapter 1, moving from the ego to service. The vast majority of self-help teachers encourage people to follow outward, assertive, ego-oriented methods to achieve long-lasting wealth and happiness. But having traveled that path himself early in his life, Dr. David Hawkins knew that the ego path was ultimately a dead end. In this section, Dr. David Hawkins will encourage you to step off the ego path onto a more rewarding, fulfilling, and service-oriented enlightenment path. And as he explained, the path you will travel begins with your personal choice. Everybody's aware when they are faced with a choice between the high road and the low road, that's a common experience. So we always have a choice between taking the high road or the low road. That's a common experience. For example, you could get a better grade by cheating, or you could get an honest grade by not cheating. We have to make those decisions over and over. To me, the dilemma of human existence is that you have to choose every second. We have to choose every second. Every second of every minute, your mind is constantly making choices. The challenge of human existence is phenomenal when you look at it. Yeah, I can feel it. But because you're used to doing it, you don't realize that. Every single moment when I speak, my mind is choosing words. How do I enunciate that word? How do I phrase my messages, contextualize them, amplify them? I'm deciding whether to explain myself more or if I should just let the other person worry about it. So for every single word I'm choosing, there are probably 50 different possible options. I could suddenly become comical and break the seriousness. And for some people, that would help them. Other people would say, "Oh, I can't believe that can't believe what he's saying. He's just being lighthearted about things." They don't see the spiritual value of humor. So the human at every instant, every fractional instant, is choosing between this thought and that thought, between this option and that option. Shall I shift in my chair? I just had to decide that. There are probably half a dozen conscious options, and there are probably dozens of unconscious options, ways that we could go. Should I encourage them to go in that direction, or should I discourage them from following that track? We're always trying to influence, and we're always making choices. I always feel sorry for the human condition in that you can never be content, because the minute you're content, you're even wondering if you should be content. Can you relate? I certainly can. There's very little rest for humans because our minds are constantly presenting an endless array of options. People say that they don't believe in karma. Well, you don't have to use that word. What you can see is that your mind is endlessly, constantly confronted with options, and your whole life is going to change depending on which option you pick. It's like a giant map, an electronic map. And if you choose this direction, you're going to end up hundreds of miles from if you'd chosen that other direction. Isn't that so true? Pick your own adventure type of book. those computer books where if you picked this way, then the game would go in this direction. But if you picked this option or that door, it would completely unfold a new path. That's really how life is. There are multiple options at any given moment. Do I turn left? Do I turn right? If I turned left, my life would have turned out this way. If I turned right, it would have turned out this way. That can seem really overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, well, which way do I choose? That's why it's so important to study yourself, to go in, get quiet every day, ground yourself, and make decisions from a grounded place of self, not from your activated, triggered, emotionally dysregulated parts. So making choices is the major human occupation. Yet nobody ever mentions it. The major human preoccupation, and it eclipses all others, is the constant making of choices. Should I look in that direction or not? Should I try to get this job? Should I say this or say that? Should I wear this? Should I walk on the other side of the sidewalk? Should I call so-and-so? Should I let this bill wait another 2 weeks? What you see is a projection of your own consciousness. It's what you project out into the world, whether you see this world as sad, happy, ludicrous, beneficial, beautiful, divine, frustrating, corrupt, evil, or an infinite good. If man is to progress to realize the ultimate divinity, which is the core of his existence, then it would require progressively growing into that dimension of awareness. The karmic benefit of human lifetime, as the Buddha said, would be self-rewarding. Fortunate it is to be born a human. Even more fortunate it is to have heard of enlightenment. And rarer still is to be born, to have heard of enlightenment, and then proceed to pursue it. I think that's where we're all at today. We have the option for sure. Not everybody follows it, trust me. I don't want to. But it's like the more you know. I know too much now not to. I can't play dumb. I can't unknow things. So it says the karmic benefit of human lifetime, as the Buddha said, would be self-rewarding. Fortunate it is to be born a human. Even more fortunate it is to have heard of enlightenment. And rarer still is it to be born, to have heard of enlightenment, and then proceed to pursue it. I think that's what we're all doing. And I might add, rarer than that is to achieve enlightenment, because it requires tenacity. The roadway to enlightenment takes you through difficult terrain, like a walk through a swamp. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And then I'll just read this little last part, or this section. It says, the difference between force and power. Ooh, from his book, Power versus Force. Highly recommend. Just look up for YouTube videos on it. It's like consciousness scale of emotions, and it's quite powerful. All right, the difference between force and power. Force is linear. Force is demarcated. It has a form like a molecule. It may have ears on it, eyes, feet, anything. It has structure. Therefore, force is limited. That which has form is obviously limited. It's limited by form. That which is formless is unlimited. Eventually, we can solve every riddle that's ever plagued mankind with this little simple formula. We know that E equals mc squared. This is force limited to form. Power, which is non-dual, is infinite. Power has no limitation. If you've ever thought about The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, the book by Dr. Joseph Murphy, powerful book. Our minds are infinite. They're powerful. Think about this. You and I, we have two parts of us. If we want to simplify it, we have the physical seen part. The body you can see, it has edges, forms, it's matter, it's hard, solid, we can see it with our eyes. It has bounds, it's limited. My physical body is finite and limited. It's the form of me. Then I have the infinite mind, energy that is boundless and limitless. My mind is not confined to my body. My mind can be anywhere. My mind can be in Spain right now. We talk like that. Where's your mind at? My mind was somewhere else. Get a hold of yourself. I was out of my mind. My mind is limitless. It's infinite. My body is limited, finite. Remember this. Our mind is not our brain. Our brain is our body. Our brain is a part of our body. Our brain is actually our body. Or rather, our body is our brain. So my brain is in my body. My brain is in my body. But my body is in my mind. My brain is in my body, but my body is in my mind. My mind is not in my body. My brain is in my body, but my mind covers, my body is in my mind. My mind is everywhere. My mind is in every molecule. It's my energetic power, infinitely limitless. All right. Force is linear. Force is demarcated. It has a form like a molecule. It may have ears on it, eyes, feet, anything. It has structure, our bodies. Therefore, force is limited. So my body is obviously limited. That which has form is obviously limited. It's limited by form. That which is formless, my mind, is unlimited. Eventually, we can solve every riddle with E equals mc squared. This is force limited to form. Power, which is non-dual, is infinite. Power has no limitation. In fact, the greater the demand you put on power, the greater it swells and meets the need. Force, on the other hand, is exhausted. Force goes from here to there. It extends its own energy. You have to constantly stoke force with more and more energy. Money, bodies of soldiers, bodies of believers, their gold, their lives, their sweat, you have to pull it out. The Roman Empire, which was the greatest empire the world had ever seen, petered out after 1,000 years. So force is limited. Power, on the other hand, is unlimited. Ooh. God, all of his books are so darn good. I'm going to read a little bit more. Truth and Subjectivity. I haven't read this yet. What does it say? Truth and subjectivity. When you define what is truth, it's possible to define truth without defining the context. And that is the reason all the greatest philosophers that have ever lived have never solved the problems of epistemology, because they never got that subtly. Is epistemology like the whole, like the beginning or the core of human nature? Let's look it up together. I've known what that word means at one point in my life, but obviously I haven't used it that much. Let's look it up. Epistemology. All right, everyone. Epistemology, a branch of philosophy that investigates the origin, nature, methods, and limits of human knowledge. All right. So it says the reason all the greatest philosophers that have ever lived have never solved the problem of epistemology, because they never got that subtly. Am I saying that word right? You move from the objective to the subjective. You move from the objective outer world to the subjective inner world. The objective will take you up to 499 on the map of consciousness, on his consciousness scale. And so that's science. Oh God, I wish I had a copy. I don't. But if you can imagine, I'm going to draw this for you. This is happening. This is happening. All right, we got a blank piece of paper. We got it, team. We're in it to win it. So I think it goes up to 1,000. Whatever, 100. We'll start at 100. And this goes to 499. All right. Let me check if my camera's working here. All right. So this is David Hawkins' consciousness scale. Say it starts at 100, which is a low level of consciousness or dense, heavy, force, power. As you rise on the scale, it goes all the way up to 1,000. This is like enlightenment. This is power. So force, power, and we always operate from different levels. On the other different scales, if you Google the Hawkins consciousness scale, it has different emotions, different colors. Like this is red, this is like purple and white. So 499, he's talking about here. There's a cutoff in level here. He says this is like where the objective scientific mind lays, and then this is where the subjective spiritual scale. It's like we can only with our logical human objective mind get to 499. Then we have to get into the illogical subjective mind where we don't know, into higher levels of consciousness. Things like grace, prayer can get us farther than science and research. It's ineffable. This is also the world of below 499, below 500 is the world of duality, and above is non-duality, oneness. All right, so it says the objective will take you up to 499 on that map of consciousness. And from there, you move into subjective. The presence of God is not something one can experience through thought, but experientially. It is subjective. What kinesiology or consciousness calibration shows us is that consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. At first, I thought it was truth versus falsehood. I thought consciousness knows the truth from the false. Actually, consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. It only knows the truth and the not true. So actually, consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. It only knows the truth and the not true. It knows what's true and fails to recognize what is not true. It knows what's true and fails to recognize what is not true. You see how that gets us out of polarity. You see how there's a subtlety to this? I'm not following. Let me read that again. What kinesiology or consciousness calibration shows us is that consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. Okay. At first, I thought it was truth versus falsehood. I thought consciousness knows the truth from the false. Actually, consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. It only knows the truth and not the not true or the false. It knows what's true and fails to recognize what is not true. I'll get that one day. You see how that gets us out of polarity. You see how there's a subtlety to this? It gets you out of the spiritual guilt of the polarity of the opposites, where you like this and hate that. You feel guilty because you're supposed to be spiritual and not hate anything. See, there's a chocolate and vanilla. You can like chocolate without hating vanilla. Okay. You don't have to hate vanilla. You can just choose chocolate. You can be conservative and not hate the liberals because they're all vanilla. They can be vanilla liberals. And they don't have to hate conservatives because they're chocolate. They can just like vanilla and say to themselves, I don't know how you digest that chocolate, but that's your problem, you know? One chocolate guy says, vanilla is for wimps. If you like vanilla, you like vanilla. But us guys, we like chocolate. You can champion your cause. You can tell others that we're the greatest and tattoo yourself and make parades and all that, but you don't have to get into hate. That's hilarious. All right. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a little intro if you haven't heard anything from, read any books from Dr. David Hawkins. There's actually an app. It's my favorite app. It is a Hay House app. They publish a lot of books. It's this little, Empower You. It's a little heart with little earphones on it, this app. Empower You. EMPOWERYOU. Empower You. It's a 2-week free trial of audiobooks, all published by Hay House, and other like lectures and series. I'm a huge audiobook listener. I'm obsessed with this app. I'm on it 24/7. It's like audible.com, Audible, the audio that goes with you wherever you are. I always joke with my friends about that. All right, so like audible.com, but it's specifically for like personal development, spiritual development, consciousness, enlightenment type stuff. Hay House Publications. But you can get 2 free weeks, and pretty much all of Dr. David Hawkins' books are on here, all of his audiobooks. Power versus Force, I believe, is on here. Is it not on here? But the Eye of the I, damn, that's a good book. The Eye of the I. Letting Go, I'm listening to that now. Well, I'm trying to. Reality, Spirituality and Modern Man, Discovery of the Presence of God. What I love about David Hawkins is that he mixes like the science with the spiritual. Not that I need it, but it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. Kind of introducing you to the world of non-duality. Well, I hope you enjoyed this reading today. I certainly did. How's your week going so far? I hope you're enjoying. It's down to the last couple weeks of January. Can you believe it? It's going to be February soon, 2023. If there's any books you want me to check out or read or talk about or discuss, please message me. I appreciate all your love and support as always, and I'm loving growing on this YouTube. I think I was at like 200 or 300 followers. Now I'm at like 515. If you don't already, please follow me on TikTok and Instagram. What else? Yeah, I'm running a group right now, Mindset Reset, at my therapy practice. If you want to join us on Thursday nights via Zoom, hit me up. Please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Have a wonderful night.